Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central. Hope you had a restful weekend. Thank you for starting the week with us. We're here again bringing you the stories that have happened in the past 72 hours, I will say. The past weekend has been quite a dramatic one. I'll be delving into that shortly. But first, you're welcome. We're streaming live on YouTube. Remember to drop your comments in the chat box and I'll be picking some comments from there. My name is Olive MOD and you're welcome to the show.
And I'm Benga Borough. You're welcome to Breakfast Central on a Monday, recharged, refreshed, and ready to take on the new week. It was quite an eventful weekend. It didn't feel like a weekend. It felt like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all packed in one because of the news cycle. We're here to break down everything you must have missed over the course of the weekend. You're welcome.
That's right. Benga said it all as well as Olive, and we're here to make sure that we start your brand new working week on a very insightful note. There's so much to talk about. There's the story of the change of the service chiefs.
Big news.
Big news. And then we also have the story that's got to do with Football Federation, that's just by the side.
Accountability, FIFA Stadium in Kebbi State.
Oh, yes.
So NFF is in the spotlight.
Oh, yes.
How did you spend this money over the course of the year?
And then there's Shore.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Shore was quite an interesting one. I recall that Shore had been arrested alongside a number of people. Nnamdi Kanu's brother had been arrested. His lawyer, Aloy Jumako, had been arrested as well. Their bail conditions had been granted by the magistrate in Abuja. Unfortunately, he was whisked away, like Cisco said. Let me whisk you away. Okay.
Better get some fries and a shake.
Okay, well, this is without fries and shake. His supporters have been speaking up on social media. There have been huge criticism. Benjamin Hunde has also come on the fire for his response, clarifying what some might have called a misconception regarding the way in which Shore was arrested. We'll be delving into the details of this shortly. Maybe we should start off. Should we start off with the Shore story, or do we go straight into the...
I mean, since you've let the can out of the bag, let's just...
No, let's actually start with the Reverend story. So, in the most recent times, after Ted Cruz had made a statement regarding the genocide, right?
Yes.
There's been a lot of reactions. Here in Nigeria, a number of pastors, reverends, particularly in the northern part of Nigeria as well as the Middle Belt, have spoken up about what would be referred to as a Christian genocide, something that the federal government has come out to outrightly deny exists. The Christian Association of Nigeria as well has spoken about this and, talked about their stance on it. But a particular reverend who made the video initially on the day when about 13 bodies were about to be buried has now come out to cry out again, saying that he's been targeted in some measure and stating that he's communicated to his members that if he's arrested, they should not pay a dime, and that he would basically inferring that he's ready to be a martyr. Let's take a look at this video.
The mercy. We are showing them love, but they didn't see. I don't know whether I'll be the next. But for me, I've already told my family, my members, if they kidnap me, nobody should contribute 1 kobo. My grave will speak. My blood will raise war that will lead to Christian liberation. That day is coming. I'm just waiting for them. Even I will tell them, please kill me quickly. Because nobody will bring kobo. And if they call home, they will tell them our daddy covenant last will that we should never pay a kobo. Please kill him. Because my blood will be useful while I'm in the grave. It will fight to finish him. And I know Jesus has approved that for me. I speak, I'll be more dangerous in the world of the dead. I will not even be in the world of the dead. I will ascend to paradise. But from paradise, I will make the Muslim uncomfortable that will lead them to repent and accept Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. That day is coming. That's my own desire of my heart. And Jesus says, I will give you the desire of your heart. God says, I will give you the desire of your heart. I want to see Muslim repenting, Fulani repenting, accepting Jesus as their personal Savior. Thank you, my brothers. God is with us. Those of you that you have supported us through the
And that video was done by a reverend in Plateau State. He's evangelist Ezekiel Dachomo of the Church of Christ in Nations. And then he's, like you've seen in the video, talked about his position, saying that his death would not be in vain. Rather, it will spare some form of spiritual revival and evangelism. Gentlemen, let's get your thoughts before we get into what Nigerians are saying.
I mean, it boils down to the federal government in the first place. If Nigerians, regardless of religion, were not dying in high numbers, we wouldn't be in the spotlight. So it's because of social failures, security failures, and multiple failures that it's become a topic of discussion around the world, which is quite embarrassing and very sad indeed that Nigerians have to lose their lives in the way due to insecurity, banditry, and multiple reasons. The chief of staff to the Pope over the weekend too said, you know, Nigeria doesn't have a Christian genocide problem. They said it's due to social problems, and but over the years we've seen that Boko Haram have carried out their dastardly acts, and all terrorist groups has affected Muslims and Christians alike. So I can understand his frustration. I can understand why he's speaking passionately the way he's speaking, but we also have to do things within limits. Going ahead to say that, you know, he's going to pray and, you know, convert Muslims to accept Jesus, I think that's taking it too far. Let's respect boundaries, and everyone has a right to practice their religion in whatever way they deem fit. That's just my 2 cents.
I agree. It's a sad one because this is not the first time this is happening. We recall last year, Olive, here on Breakfast Central, we had talked about the attacks in Plateau, where residents were attacked and some were killed, and some of them predominantly were Christians who were killed. And all of a sudden, I remember we asked the guest who had joined us here if it is actually targeted at a certain religious group, and he said they don't really know, but it's like it's looking that way. Now the US has stepped in, the Nigerian mission has also stepped in to say, listen, this is what is happening. CAN has equally stepped in. There's been disagreements, if you recall from last week, the newspapers also said so. CAN and the federal government disagree on this particular issue. And now you have this one cleric who is speaking out and is talking. One of the things I did see, I cannot categorically confirm, but I could say it's allegedly stated that he had mentioned that at one point when the attack was almost coming, they had alerted the security operatives that this is about to happen, we need help, but they did not get that help. So, Benga, like you highlighted, I wonder, if you have the federal government and it's been pointed that this particular area, this particular zone, is predominantly, constantly attacked.
It's a black spot.
It's exactly. So you could call it maybe a hotbed, hotspot, name it. Therefore, what do? We have to find a way to see how we can protect these people. But it's not looking that way. And what I see in that video is a voice of a frustrated individual
crying for help,
who has been crying for help, but it seems like he has now returned or has taken himself not too far anymore, but he believes that, listen, anything that wants to happen,
he has resigned himself to faith.
He has resigned himself to faith. That's the word. And he said, see, anything that wants to happen, let it just happen. I am done.
And I think you both gentlemen have expressed the same thoughts that I will share as well.
Are you sure?
City Church had a conference, right? Renew conference, and I attended the conference.
Is that your church
yes.
normally?
And Archbishop Benjamin Kwashi, who is an Anglican bishop in Jos, Plateau State, was one of the guest preachers. And he detailed his journey of experiencing firsthand what it feels like to be a minister in a community that is ravaged by terrorism. He talked about his wife, Mommy Gloria, who was abused by terrorists because they came looking for him. These bandits came looking for him. He was not in the house. And then they hurt her and his child. And, for a while, I don't even want to recount the story because it was the most emotional story a number of us had heard. He could not complete the story. First-hand account. If you speak to a number of people who live in Plateau, who live in, the Middle Belt, they will share with you their experiences and how I've been in community groups and fellowships where somebody raises a prayer point. Imagine raising a prayer point saying, oh, my family messaged me. I have family in Plateau State. They messaged me saying they heard gunshots. They were attacked last night, and right now I can't reach them. Please, can we pray? A number of the things we pray about are things that our government should be able to grant the regular citizen. A government that cannot provide the protection of lives. What exactly is your role as a government? So our prayer points as Nigerians will be reduced. And Nigerians will not be as, they won't be jumping from one prayer house to another. I know I'm Christian, very proudly so, and very in support of people following their religion. But a number of the things we pray for are the things that the government should provide.
And the government needs to absolutely step up and provide. Now we've seen a change in personnel at the upper high command of the security agencies. Hopefully we'll see a difference. And one other point I want to raise is, there was a society birthday over the weekend, Victor Island. I'm sure if you passed, you know who was celebrating. The sheer number of security operators that are attached to VIPs, just socialites, VIPs. Every big man has a Hilux. And I'm just talking of a microcosm of Lagos on that Friday, let alone replicate this in 36 states of the federation, appointment holders, politicians. How many policemen will be really left to tackle some of these incidents? So
it's interesting that, our conversations this morning will be from insecurity to insecurity, because our next story will review insecurity. But first, let's take what Nigerians are saying about this video that you've just seen. I Pledge to Nigeria says, the pastor has had an unimaginable traumatic experience, no doubt, but he should not make this a Muslim versus Christian conflict, which it is not. The federal government needs to do more on security. Too much money has been wasted tackling these criminals over the years with almost nothing to show for it. That's the issue. That's what I Pledge to Nigeria says. Dara Becker says, if you have never lived in the north among the persecuted, you will never fathom the depth of this sacrifice. Every day, Christians give up their life for their beliefs. If I die for Christ, and if I live for Christ. May God protect you, God's general. And Ikachi says, so CAN and PFN can't do anything to support this man. CAN has been speaking. The Christian Association of Nigeria has spoken. If you check online, you'll see their statement regarding the issue of whether or not there is a genocide against Christians. They've been speaking about this as well. Away from Dikachi's tweet, let's move on. Okay, I think that's all that we can take. All right, now we're moving on from one story about insecurity to another story about insecurity. This time around, it's the young lady Aisha Wahab that was kidnapped. The video went viral on social media where her abductors were asking her to pay for ransom. Let's take a look at this video. Information reaching us is that she's been released. But the twist is that this information was not released by the security agencies. It was not released by the Edo State government. It was released by a Nigerian activist, Harrison Gwamnishu. Let's take a look at this video.
No, turn. Small, yeah?
We are here with Aisha from Hospital 2 weeks ago, and currently it's almost 9 p.m. Right? Aisha, your videos are good for
you. They even bought my phone, sir.
They bought your phone?
They bought them. So, it doesn't extract it, so...
Coming up.
Okay.
Yeah. All of us go drive too now. All of us, Abiona, I want to leave us.
No, I want to make we cadastre now.
Again, whose responsibility is it to protect the lives of Nigerian citizens? And in incidences like this, whose responsibility is it to organize a release or a retrieval, a rescue rather, as well as an apprehending of the criminals in this case. Harrison Gwamnishu went on Facebook and he put out this post. He said, 2 weeks ago, Aisha was kidnapped at Igbira camp, Auchi, Edo State. Thankfully, she regained her freedom last night. Sadly, we couldn't move in to capture her abductors because the state security agencies and the Edo State government have repeatedly failed to respond to our calls for collaboration. It should be on record that Aisha was kidnapped at Igbira camp, Auchi, and released last night in Okbila, Edo State. Those familiar with the area can attest to the long distance between Auchi and Okbila, a journey the victim was forced to trek alongside her abductors. Certain technical equipment required for our rescue operations can only be deployed with official authorization. Unfortunately, despite repeated efforts to reach the Edo State government and the Commissioner of Police, we have been unable to get their response. The post continues. He says, we've now had to withdraw and return to our own base, a state where we have full support from the police, military, and government to operate effectively. Shout out to Delta State. To everyone who stood by Aisha's family during this difficult time, thank you sincerely. This is another reminder that security requires partnership between citizens, government, and volunteers like us. We remain ready to assist, but we cannot do it alone. We need government backing and public support to continue saving lives. Enough talk. Take action now. There are several proven avenues to capture these kidnappers. We demand immediate government intervention, coordinated field operations, and full support for law enforcement. Lives are at stake. Signed by Harrison Gwamnishu, Safe City Volunteer Foundation. Enough said. I don't think that there's anything left to add.
No, let's just go to what Nigerians are saying.
There's nothing left to add. Anyway, let's take what Nigerians are saying.
Gmail says, how on earth do these kidnappers keep evading arrest? How was the ransom paid? And can it not be traced? What exactly is the way forward? Will they keep milking Nigerians? These are the questions we need to ask ourselves, says Gmail. Reboot Nigeria says, good, she's free. But how long will Nigerians keep celebrating releases instead of preventing kidnapping? Good question. This country has turned abduction into an industry. Kidnappers cash out, the government sleeps, and citizens live in fear. Nigeria is now one giant ransom republic. I mean, we can sugarcoat it as much as we want, but kidnapping has become a $1 billion industry, and it's a money-spinning industry. Director Mars says kidnappers, bandits will make several calls, send videos, drop location, and cannot be tracked. But an activist will drop a tweet about the bad situation in the country, and DSS will track you in days. God forbid Nigerian government and institutions, says Director Mars. I mean, there's so much technology, geolocation, geotagging, there are things they can do about these things, but I mean, Harrison's statements was very heartbreaking. Patience says, this is what I want to see from Nigerians. These ones came out to help and brought a smile to the face of a woman, not from their tribe. There is only one tribe, the human tribe. We are all Nigerians, and I refuse to be divided by tribe. God bless you all who aided her freedom.
I'm going to borrow the statement made by Patience here. I think that should be our parting statement, and we should continue to mention it regularly, that there's nothing like a tribe sentiment. Or
we're all human beings.
We're all humans.
And all religions preach about the sanctity of life.
Yeah.
So having said that, going back to Harrison's statement, I mean, what is the problem with the Edo State Police Command? And why are they not? I mean, this is somebody's child in grave danger. You should have seen that video, a plea video, very heart-wrenching. And then people reach out to you for coordination, for help, and you just fold your arms.
And these guys are doing it out of their own.
Or are they waiting for orders from above Abuja before you swing into action? These people put their own resources together, and they managed to free the girl and get her into captivity. And a way of preventing, one of those tweets from what Nigerians are saying says, are we not going to do something about preventing? We're tired of celebrating releases. And in preventing them, they should have, I mean, the guys that rescued her would have provided intelligence, location, and everything to neutralize those kidnappers. So they won't do it again, because by the time they finish spending this ransom payment, they would look for an next
They'll look for an next
and then it becomes recurring.
We can't deny that kidnapping has become a business.
It's a big business.
It's a big business.
It's a big
why,
business.
You know, people who want to come into Nigeria, even for Dirty December, you've started to see the memos going out saying people should be careful because kidnapping has become a business. In a bid to not make kidnapping a business is why they try to make it illegal for people to pay ransom. But you can't beat a baby and tell the baby not to cry. You can't not provide security and then you tell people that they shouldn't pay for ransom to get their loved ones. Right? Anyway. This is what we have regarding security, the state of insecurity in Nigeria, but we'll be expanding further on these conversations much later. Let's now move to our final wake-up conversation. This morning, we're looking at Omoyele Sowore, former presidential candidate at the just concluded elections. His arrest on the 23rd of October 2025, recall that he was part of the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest. Not only was he arrested, Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer, Aloy Ejimakor, as well as his brother, have been arrested as well. There were about 12 people who were arrested, and the reason that the police gave for Omoyele Sowore's arrest was that they could not have arrested the people who had allegedly gotten into areas, who had breached or trespassed into reserved areas without arresting the leader of this protest. And in the interest of fairness, they were arresting Omoyele Sowore. The magistrate judge, the magistrate court in Kuje, gave, of course, the bail conditions and had immediately after the bail was given, Omoyele Sowore was rearrested. And the question is, why was he rearrested or why was he taken away? The tweet by the police spokesperson had then explained that he was not being arrested on fresh charges. It's on the same charges, but that basically, yes, the court has granted them permission to giving him bail, but pending the completion of this bail,
the perfection
of the bail, he remains within their custody. But people are saying, why the drama with the way in which he was arrested?
Why the hula baloo?
The hula baloo.
And that, you know, they had gotten a warrant of some sort. There was a document that was presented. You know, we'll come into the details of that, but let's take a look at this video.
However, while we were conferring with him just here, all the team of his lawyers and supporters, he was violently attacked by the police. More than 50 police officers violently attacked him and took him again by force. You know, we do not know where they are taking him to. They claim, the officer who initiated the attack claimed that he had gotten the remand order. He flashed the remand order to us, but we insisted on seeing and reviewing the details. But he refused and put it back in his pocket, and the next thing he said that they must go. We said, where are you taking him to? He said they are taking him.
That IPO, CSP, Iliasu, Barao, came here to cause commotion. Look at my hand. When we're struggling, this is blood. Yes, he came to cause commotion. They came to activate provocation. They wanted to, it is not, there is no root.
No basis was there.
And for you to know that it was a planned work, a police officer who was there laughing with all of us, that is also
blood on his beat.
Yes, who says also a comrade. He just came, you know, with a piece of paper. We could never accept what is inside.
A lot is going on in the country. The question is, what is the rule of law and what is the law?
And procedures.
Who are to obey the laws?
CSP Benjamin Hundeyin went on X and he displayed a photo that is, of course, the warrant of commitment to prison remand for Omoyele Sowore. And there have been reactions to this. Let's quickly take one or two tweets from what Nigerians are saying. And then you can also go on YouTube and share your thoughts.
All right. Mazi Uche Ukweudo says, wow, so the police think court orders are optional and that attacking someone is fine as long as you give them a tetanus shot afterward. Nothing says respect the law like storming a court, ignoring bail, and acting like it is completely normal. We'll take one more tweet because we need to go for a break. When police attack citizens at a court, it's not just one man under threat. It's justice itself if court is not safe. What hope does the average Nigerians, okay, let me add that, have?
Every time I think about arrest and I see the way in which we carry out arrest in our country, I'm reminded that the law as it is a far cry from the law as it ought to be. When I always thought the kind of arrest I was taught about in law school is not what I'm
It's
seeing.
different from
It's
the
completely different
hula
from-
baloo and the
from what we're
shenanigans you're
here.
seeing.
Actually,
Yeah.
that's what it is. But we will speak some more about this as we proceed with the show today. Thank you very much for joining us on Breakfast Central. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll head into the show proper. But let's quickly share with you, what our top stories are. Our top stories this morning. Controversy follows the demolition of properties in Oworonshoki. This is one of our conversations this morning. And we'll be looking about devolution as the agenda for 2027. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olisa Agbakoba, calls for that. Anambra gubernatorial race, we're counting down the days. And the Governor Soludo has pledged to give out money. Is that cash for votes we're seeing at work?
The former CBN governor.
Nigeria Criminal Justice Act stakeholders prefer solutions for effective implementation, and the newspaper front pages will be reviewed. Stick with us for all these and more.
Welcome back. Our first conversation this morning is a story that has placed a community in Lagos in distress. Over 100 homes demolished in Oworonshoki, despite a court order restraining the Lagos state government from doing so. Families displaced, lives upended, and now a legal firestorm is indeed brewing.
The Lagos state government insists due process was followed, but human rights lawyer Femi Falana says otherwise, accusing the government of contempt of court. Joining us now to unpack the legal, ethical, and human dimensions of this unfolding crisis is legal practitioner Oluwa Agbakoba. A warm welcome to you, and thanks for joining us for Breakfast Central, Barrister Agbakoba.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now let's start with this. Despite a restraining order from Justice A.G. Balogun, the bulldozers rolled in. Is this not a clear contempt of courts by the state government?
So when we talk about restraining orders generally, we need to be very careful. And in the first instance, I would also be very careful because I'm a lawyer. I'm a member of the profession, and it's a noble profession that we belong to. So now, I've not seen any court order. So my comment would just be based on hypothetical scenario, in the sense that to the extent in which I've not seen the court order, if possibly, or peradventure there is any court order that has been served, because when we also talk about court orders, I don't know the nature. There are several types of court orders, especially restraining orders. I don't know whether it is ex parte. I don't know whether it is an interlocutory injunction. I don't know whether it is a perpetual injunction. So, but be that as it may, it is usually expected by virtue of Section 287 of the 1999 Constitution that every court order must be obeyed. But I think the question is, if you obtain a court order and you fail to serve me, or I'm yet to be privy to such an order, or the necessary party or agency of the government is yet to be aware of the court order, can we say, validly that there is a contempt of court? Because when we say contempt, the implication of it is that there is an order that has been disobeyed. And before an order that can be disobeyed, there should be awareness of that particular order. I don't think there is any order that the court will make, either ex parte, either interlocutory, without the court not making, a consequential order that such an order be served, or without a party, not expected to be a party, that is the recipient not expected to be served with such an order. So I may just have to leave it there. Depending on whether the order is served, that's when we can now be talking of the contempt of the court. But generally, I would also say that the government is an institution that can sue, and be sued. So if a government agency is being sued and there is an order against such an agency and such an order is served, I think it is a sine qua non. It is expected that such an order needs to be obeyed. And the reason I say this is this. Now, the party or the agency that demolished is in the executive arm of government. You know, the Lagos State Building Control Agency is in the executive arm of government, given the fact that they implement policies. There is a Lagos State Building Control Regulations that regulate, you know, the action of Lagos State Building Control Agency. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that there is separation of powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary. So if a separate arm, pursuant to Section 6 and 287 of the 1999 Constitution, has given an order, and you know the executive is aware of such an order, then I think the order should be obeyed without any further ado. But if it can be shown that the order was served and the order is not obeyed, then we can now be talking about contempt of court.
Okay, let's talk about what some might have considered, you know, human rights abuses, or maybe the unfair way in which demolition is carried out. At the end of the day, the government must always have a human face. The police have been accused of, you know, not just the fact that they did this raiding in the midnight and that the demolition started at midnight. The police was accused of firing tear gas, even though they've come out to deny it. But coming in the middle of the night to start demolitions, isn't that a bit too unfair? I know that the law, yes, the law has procedures for how things are being carried out, but there's also some measure of empathy that the law takes into consideration, even in the way you serve notice to quit to a yearly tenant or a monthly tenant. Coming in the middle of the night to bring down these buildings and bulldoze these buildings, that is a far cry from what should be the face of a government that shows empathy for its citizens.
I agree with you to some extent, but I would also say, like you rightly said, that there are procedures for everything. Now, the law is being made to regulate us as individuals, and there is always a purpose for the law, and the law does not tilt towards sentiment or emotions. Now, the reason I say all this is because before demolition can be carried out, yes, there are procedures that must be followed. But at the same time, there are circumstances that would have occurred. For example, the building that is being demolished, is it in contravention of any known law or regulation? That's number one. The building that is being demolished, is it under a restricted area or a statutory prohibited area? For example, there are some places that have been tagged as statutory prohibited. Are you building under high tension wire? Or could it be that the government has a purpose for where you are building in the general interest of the public? Now, before I go further, let me quickly take a voyage to Section 44 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. And that Section 44 talks about freedom from compulsory acquisition of either movable or immovable property. Now, what that section try to say is that nobody can compulsorily acquire a property. But there are exceptions to it. There are exceptions because we've seen that at times, you know, there can be acquisition of property by the government in the general interest of the public, and as long as compensation is being paid, you know, to the victims of the acquisition, and as long as the purpose of the acquisition is to prevent an health hazard or injurious hazard, you know, things like that. That is strictly contained in Section 44, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution. Now, the reason I've cited this is because on one hand, government, the law, permit a situation whereby there can be demolition. On the other hand, like you rightly said, there needs to be a face to it. But I think we need to inquire further. And I would advise that possibly, you know, we should have the affected members in your studio, and also invite an agency of the Lagos State government to come and properly clarify the reason. Because I am aware of the fact that by virtue of the Lagos State Building Regulation, if you don't have your building permits, you know, the government can demolish. But what is the extent of the demolition? There is something called TOC. Now, if you don't have your permit, the government can just, to show you that you don't have your permit and to show you that you need to have it, they will not totally level it to the ground. They can just use the caterpillar to remove either the roof or some places, you know, and they will mark it, and you also need to go and meet them. That doesn't mean that the government has acquired. But from what I'm hearing, because I've also tried to do some investigations, in that story, I'm strictly relying on what I've read. I've never interviewed or spoken to, any of the person that is affected. What I read is to the effect that there's a total demolition of the building. And I've also read, please, I can't confirm the accuracy. I've also read that, the government is trying to demolish so that they can acquire it for themselves and use it for developmental purpose. Is the developmental purpose public or private? So those are things I think the government should come out and clarify. And I think that the government should not just sit down on this and just assume the mantle of God's big toe. There is nothing anybody can do. Any action of the government that affects the generality of the citizens, before the action is taken, it is very incumbent on the government to come out and state that this action will be taken on so date and so time, so that it will not be caught, it will not cause people napping. And that is where I seem a little bit concerned or agitated with government coming out around 2 a.m., 3 a.m. to come and demolish. Well, I don't think that is fair. But at the same time, I need to be careful. To err on the side of caution, I want to know the reason they demolish. Could it be that it's under a restricted area or statutorily prohibited area, or they've not obtained building permits, so that for every reason they demolish, there is a consequence for each? If what the government is saying is that they've not acquired building permits, then they cannot demolish totally. It's something that they can acquire. The law is made for people to obey the law, not for people to now be subjected, to be trampled upon. So these are the things we need to properly
absolutely,
put into
Barrister Oguntuashe. And even if it's for urban regeneration, because just last week on Friday, the Lagos State government presented some checks to residents of Iyanowo area that were affected by its urban regeneration plan as part of resettlement. But we'll get into details of that and more. We also have a lot to unpack. But hold your thoughts, we'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this important conversation. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're having a very, very serious conversation concerning the demolition of properties in Oworonshoki. We do hear that some residents have been compensated by the Lagos State government, but then again, some are still at loggerheads and still complaining. Our guest is a legal practitioner. He's here with us, and we're discussing the issue as we speak. We do have practitioner Oluisa Agbakoba, who's here with us. The first question that you were asked, you didn't answer, and you said you weren't too sure if there was indeed a letter or a press, better still, that was released or that was shared to the public. But I think we do have that. We'd like to put it on the screen so you can actually get to see it as well. It says on Thursday, the 23rd of October, 2025, Honorable Justice A.G. Balogun of the High Court of Lagos State, sitting at Ikeja, issued an injunction against the Lagos State government, the Commissioner, Ministry of Physical Planning, and also Urban Development and the Lagos State Building Control Agency, restraining them from further demolition buildings in the Ajileru Street, Ososa Extension, and also there are a few names here mentioned. I beg your pardon. My site isn't doing me justice this morning. But
I think I'll help you.
Yeah,
I'll pick up from there. Oworonshoki area, Lagos State, approximately measuring 30 hectares, pending compliance with the pre-action protocol as provided under a pre-action protocol for land matters of the High Court of Lagos State, Expeditious Disposal of Civil Cases Practice Direction number 2 of 1999. The Lagos State Government Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development and the Lagos State Building Control Agency were duly served the court order on Friday, 24th day of October 2025. In flagrant breach and contempt of the subsisting court order, and upon the service of the court order on the Lagos State government, they mobilized over 50 armed policemen and thugs who fired tear gas through the night to disperse those protesting a demolition and proceeded to commence a fresh demolition. The demolition was carried out in the dead of the night and has led to the destruction of not less than 100 properties with families displaced. The action of the demolished squad is a sad reminder of the aggravated contempt committed by the Lagos State government years ago in the celebrated case of the military governor of Lagos State and others versus Chief Emeka Odumego Ojukwu and Ano. 1986, it just gives the reference.
Context.
The Supreme Court set a precedent against the disregard for due process and the rule of law. Notwithstanding that the country was then under a military junta, the Supreme Court deprecated the action of the Lagos State government in defying a court order and resorting to self-help. For making a mockery of the rule of law, Obaseki, Justice of the Supreme Court of blessed memory, had this to say: in the area where the rule of law operates, the rule of self-help by force is abandoned. Nigeria being one of the countries in the world, even in the third world,
which proclaims loudly to follow the rule of law, there is no room for the rule of self-help by force to operate. Once a dispute has arisen between a person and the governmental authority, and the dispute has been brought before the court, thereby invoking the judicial powers of the state, it is the duty of the government to allow the law to take its course or allow the legal and judicial process to run its full course.
That's right. Anyway, we've been able to break this down further. I'm sure this would do justice to our conversation now. So you've seen this. My question is, when you have a court injunction, why is it that the Lagos State government still feels that regardless of the court injunction, they can still go ahead and demolish properties?
Okay, so it is an aberration for any agency to disobey court orders. Court injunction is a perfect example of a court order. You know, any order of the court, an injunction is a restraining order. So is an order, you know, stricto sensu. So I would say, without equivocation, that it is an aberration, it is bad, and it is distasteful. And given the fact that we are not in the Banana Republic, we've been removed from the jackboot of the military regime. You know, in a democratic dispensation, where the constitution holds sway, you know, and in line with Section 6 and Section 287 of the 1999 Constitution that I've cited earlier, for any agency, be it a government agency or a private institution, you know, to demolish a court order. But I would also say that when an order of the court is disobeyed, there is also a procedure. You know, we have two types of contempt in fascicule and contempt ex fascicule. So it is contempt ex fascicule, you know, that's contempt out of court. You are not disobeying the court, or you are not disrespecting the court in the presence of the court. You are disrespecting the court outside the court. So either contempt in fascicule or contempt ex fascicule, there is a procedure to approach, you know, on this. The people upon whom they are supposed to obey the order, you know, against whom the order has been served and they are supposed to obey, but have refused to obey, of course, they can file, they can commence contempt proceedings against them, and they will come and show cause, the reason they failed to obey, you know, the order of the court, and they can be committed to prison. So contempt is a quasi-criminal proceedings in the sense that as much as there is a civil proceedings, if contempt of court is being committed, you know, the person that committed such a contempt, that is the contemnor, can actually be committed to prison. So I don't think it's necessary for us to, if we want to bring this on the face of the media, we should also at the same time commence the appropriate proceedings. So I think Leonard Senior, Mr. Falano, with all due respect, knows what to do about this. He's a veteran, he knows what to do. So,
well, I don't know that he's speaking. I don't know that he's speaking as a representative of them. I just, however, know you will know that typically the letter SAN will speak about issues bordering on rule of law, you know, and he will lend his thoughts and opinions. But what would you say is the remedy for the citizens? Where there is a wrong, there is a remedy. If the citizens say there is a wrong done to them, is there a remedy in sight?
Of course, there is a remedy. They
what
can
is the
approach
remedy?
The court. Yes, they can approach the court, and one of the things they can approach the court for is a declaration that the demolition that was done, you know, is not properly done. That's number one. Number two, they can also, in addition to, because I know that by commencing this troop reaction protocol, you know, which is a practice direction, they would have obtained an ex parte application. I hope the ex parte order, they would have obtained the other ex parte, and I hope it has been served on Lagos State government. But in addition to that, the purpose of the action protocol is to see whether the matters can be settled amicably and to resolve some very intricate issues. But if there is actually an urgent action that can be taken that would demolish or that would disturb the continuation of the case, I think that's the purpose for which this order is being granted. So in effect, they can get a declaratory relief, declaring the demolition, declaring it as illegal, given the fact that it is not in compliance with the law. They can also get an order of perpetual injunction, perpetually restraining the Lagos state government from going ahead to demolish, the areas that have been demolished. And they can also seek for executory relief in form of damages against the Lagos state government, because if I have a house and you come and demolish the house, with which money would I use to rebuild the house if your demolition is wrong? So I think those are the remedies that they can approach and seek from the courts without prejudice to the ones that they already have in terms of the ex parte order restraining the government from demolition.
Now, we've seen a culture of impunity, if I can use that word, where several government agencies and institutions choose to ignore court orders or rulings. What's the implication of this for the rule of law in Nigeria, and how can we stop these abuses from happening? Because it does erode trust in Nigeria's judiciary.
It's very unfortunate that we usually see this because, like I said before, we're in a democratic dispensation, and one of the basic tenets of democracy is rule of law. Everybody should know this, whether you're a lawyer or not, absolute supremacy or predominance of law over everybody, including the rulers, the ruled, and all decisions that are taken in the country. And if you have a situation in which government agencies that are supposed to be the custodian of the law are now acting flagrantly in violation of same and acting in impunity, I think is unfortunate. The constitution is very clear, and I believe that the people representing the government at the time of taking that position, one of the things they did was to swear to uphold the provisions and the tenet of the Constitution. And they are now, if they are now being seen to be running flagrantly of same, I think is one of the bases upon which they can be impeached. Yes, it's one of the bases upon which they can be impeached. If he's possibly a governor or a president, and if he's an appointee, an appointment, someone acting as an appointee of a position, I think is also one of the reasons in which that person can be removed. I don't think it's proper, in a democratic dispensation and at this stage, at this age, for anybody to run flagrant or to run foul of an order of the court. I think we should have moved beyond this, but unfortunately, this is one act too many that have always been done. And I think that, yes, most of the time, the executive arm of government has always been seen doing this. The judiciary arm is seen as the last hope of the common man. And there is a reason for which the judiciary is created under Section 6 of the 1999 Constitution. There is a reason for separation of powers by reason of the fact that we practice presidential system of government. So when we have all of this, the law is very clear, and we are still acting in flagrant disobedience of the law. I pray we don't slip into anarchy and chaos. I pray we don't slip into anarchy and chaos. Because again, we are governing, the government, the people representing the government, they are governing the citizens. And if citizens see that they are not obeying the law, I don't pray that we slip into a situation of NSAS again. I don't pray so.
All right, Mr. Iroluwa Oguntuashe, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll continue to follow up the updates regarding that. We hear that a number of them have started to receive some compensation, but we'll continue to follow up the story. Thank you for your time with us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Have a nice day.
Breakfast Central will go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be exploring more stories. Stay with us. Nigerians from all walks of life, government officials, civil society groups, and ordinary citizens stand out in large numbers for the 11th edition of the Medicaid Center Foundation in Abuja. They had their walk, and the walk was themed One Walk, One Fight, One Mission. The event brought together thousands of participants in solidarity with those affected by cancer, and to raise awareness about prevention and early detection. October is marked globally as Cancer Awareness Month, and this year's walk serves as a reminder of the importance of early screening and collective action in combating the disease. The initiative, convened by Dr. Zainab Shinkafi Bagudu, founder of the Medicaid Center Foundation and president of the Union for International Cancer Control, highlighted how awareness and compassion can save lives and inspire hope. And yes, indeed, again, a reminder that October is the month of cancer awareness. So please get all the checks. And the ladies, please get your pap smear done if you haven't done that in a while. For example, cervical cancer is the only cancer that is detectable in the pre-cancer stage. And the way to check that is to get your pap smear done. There are vaccines as well that can help. So I think with the HPV vaccine, there's also been a lot of push for the HPV vaccine. Women get your checks done monthly to check your breast. And if you suspect anything, please get a medical opinion with an ultrasound, or if you're above 40, a mammogram, to ensure that we can collectively, kick cancer. Although, I think that's one of the most heartbreaking diseases to have, because you really don't know what the next stages are. But here on Breakfast Central, we'll continue to bring you updates and share even stories of survivors. I know Jasiri had a story of a survivor whom they shared, her story of surviving breast cancer. So kudos to all survivors. Let's now move on to another story. Legal luminary Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, SAN, has declared that devolution of power must be the central agenda for the 2027 elections, calling it Nigeria's last peaceful chance for change. He's not mincing words. According to him, presidential candidates for 2027 elections should make devolution a priority for them to command voter acceptability.
Apart from the structure, and he said the electorate should elicit cogent promises from them on the need for a new constitution, state police with operational independence, resource control with minimum 50% derivation, implementation of the Oworonshoki report on the merger or scrapping of 541 agencies. Agbakoba says the no reform can succeed without federalism. Join us this morning to discuss these issues. We have with us a constitutional lawyer, Evans Ufeli. A warm welcome to you, Barrister Ufeli, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Now, devolution, according to Olisa Agbakoba, will solve the current conflict regarding Biafra and Nnamdi Kanu. What will devolution look like for Nigeria?
Well, devolution of power, I don't see the connection with which it will resolve Biafra. I don't see that result.
Or it will lessen the agitation for self-determination?
Yes, it could lessen the agitation for self-determination, especially in the areas of militancy in Niger Delta and some of the agitations you have in the southwest. But as to whether it will, because the Biafra struggle is quite different. It has to do with marginalization and discrimination according to the source. But devolution of power is the way to go, whether or not it will lessen tension in Biafra or in any other place is the way to go, because devolution of power gives the people a strong sense of belonging, and when they're able to control their resources and contribute to the center, it will liberate the regions, okay, from that stronghold, because the federal government have too many things in its hands, and that stifles development. That's even what leads to the discrimination we're talking about. Some parts seem to have forgotten. A lot of ungoverned space in the country as we speak. Devolution of power will also checkmate insecurity. That is the truth. It will checkmate insecurity, because when the people now have their own resources, the state government will do everything to protect it. Let's say, for example, the reason we had this bandit now was the gold in the north, Zamfara and the rest of that, okay? And then people were going there to smuggle these resources, and then the federal government didn't have the security wherewithal to contain it. It became a monster, it became a Frankenstein, and today we have banditry. okay? Then when you look at the Boko Haram itself, the core insurgent group itself, it was born out of poverty too, because when the idea sprang up, there were ready tools. A lot of persons who didn't go to school, were abandoned in the 80s. They were the ones who became the recruit, the direct recruit, the fertile ground for which Boko Haram insurgency festered uncontrollably. So I agree with you that security will be checkmate by devolution of power. The issue of marginalization will also be checkmate. The resource control and the complaint that goes around it there will be no need for NDDC, there will be no need for the development commissions in the 6th geopolitical zone. There will be no need for that. They will be turned to any other thing by the region if they so desire. So it's been the solution, right? For when we had devolution of power from the time from 1963, before the military took over in 1966, for that 3 years window, before the military took over in January 15, 1966, we knew how the economy grew in leaps and bounds, okay? The Eastern region became the biggest economy in the whole of Africa within a space of 3 years, okay? That was short-lived, okay, by the Second Republic. So we can see that we by military takeover rather. So devolution has always been the solution. And if the government of Nigeria wants to move the country forward, I agree with Olisa Agbakoba SAN that devolution of power is what we should be talking about intensely at the National Assembly. And that must come into the constitutional amendment. And so the constitutional amendment we can now have a constitution that will reflect the true state of things, that will give regions their requisite authority to develop at their own pace.
All right, let's also talk about constitution. You know, this constitution that has been a core course of our conversation. The learned SAN believes that our constitution can be amended, you know, in 6 months. There are those who say, you know what, amendment of the constitution shouldn't be a conversation at the table. Let's just start afresh, because what we have does not reflect the majority, the representation of the majority of Nigerian citizens. What side of the divide do you stand on?
We don't have to write a fresh constitution. Even if you're going to write a fresh constitution, the component is still going to be what you have already. Nigerians just feel that you not need to throw down and you're going to be writing new things. It's still the same content you will put. All you need to do is to amend the relevant section. Okay, those parts of the constitution that empower the federal government unnecessarily on matters that it has no competence on. You can imagine that the waterways and all these things are in the exclusive list. You can imagine that. Break down the exclusive list. Take down the whole 68 amendments, 68 items. You plug it down into the concurrent list, okay, so that the states will have authority to determine those matters. That's exactly what we need to do. We do not need to go and be writing a fresh constitution. We could just let the federal government, it's left to me, I would say that let the federal government only manage defense, external affairs, and currency. Defense, external affairs, and currency. That's enough for the federal government. And that's how it is in the US. The federal government don't need to start to talk about issues of schools like they do. They have federal government colleges and all that. The state can handle all that. The federal government don't need to bother itself with waterways, okay? It doesn't need to bother itself with so many things they pack, you know, and all that that have no competence on. Okay, so the state can manage those things and then contribute to the center by way of tax and taxation. That way, we're able to curtail as those who want a new constitution written only want it to appease their psychology. Let it just be that, and we stand down and we rewrote. It's the same thing I'm going to write. It's the same. What is adjustment? The 1999 constitution is not a bad document, as a lot of people want you to believe. That the constitution, the entire body of work. Okay, look at the whole of chapter 2. The whole of chapter 2 before now was not even justiciable, and that is where the duties and responsibility of governments was entrenched. Okay, from section 13. Okay, so section 13 down, you know, to that whole section, it's not really considered justice of chapter 2. But because specific laws have been made, the fundamental objective and directive principle of state policy, many laws have sprung out from those areas. So that is why, if you look at it today, you cannot say that entire chapter 2 is not justiciable, because it is highly justiciable in many ways, because you can enforce some of the items there. And that is where the federal government actually, its responsibility actually mapped out for the purpose of progress. So that adjustment of the devolution is actually the answer to this whole thing. There's no country in the world, apart from maybe these small African countries that have small population, that you can talk about, you can rule in the way Nigeria is being governed. The way Nigeria is highly diverse. Okay, it's big, population is large, the economy is large. Okay. So if you want to sustain that kind of diversity with geopolitical and economic issues, you cannot sustain it with centralization. You can only sustain it with devolution of power. So let the component unit have their requisite power to do what they have to do, and Nigeria will go very fast.
All right, Barrister Ofeli would like to continue this conversation, but first let's go for a quick break. When we come back, I will talk some more. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We are focusing on the devolution as agenda for 2027. Our guest is a legal practitioner. Of course, Barrister Ofeli is still here with us. Thanks for staying with us. Let's look at one aspect that many are talking about. Permit me to go back to the Constitution. Many have said that, I know you've said there's no need to change. Let's just make adjustments. But some are of the opinion, and when I mean some, I mean a good number of Nigerians, feel that because it was handed down to us by the military, therefore some of the things, permit me to use the word things, that are written on the Constitution cannot really favor the country, especially now that we are in a democratic setting. The SAN, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, has also said that it will take 6 months to actually see how we can change a few things in the Constitution. Do you think we can still use that 6 months to do that?
Just to quickly add to that, I want to quote something, in addition to what my colleague had said. He had argued that, of course, the 1999 Constitution imposed by the military is a cracked foundation. He's referred to it as a cracked foundation, incapable of supporting true federalism or economic growth, and then says that you cannot fix economic problems with economic solutions when the root cause is political. 25 years of constitutional amendments have failed because you cannot amend your way out of a flawed foundation. Please go ahead. Mr. Ofeli, are you there?
Yes, sorry, can I get the question again? I didn't get the question very well.
I think he just wanted you to sort of expand further on your thoughts regarding the Constitution. If it is an argument that the Constitution was handed over to us.
Whether I agree that it can be amended within 6 months, I agree it can. We can actually amend it within 6 months. Because all the items that have been agitated for and against is already in the public domain. All the things we put forth there is already in public domain. Remember also in 2018 or thereabout, the National Assembly at that time came up with a whole long list. Okay, some were able to pass, some did not pass. Okay, before now, a lot of people have written a lot of articles, a lot about those areas that will require amendments. So we don't need to go and start to recycle the whole thing. All we need to do is to get materials, argument for and against, okay, and see how those amendments can be effected within 6 months. That's possible. The Constitution is not a very big document that cannot be looked at. The structures are quite clear. Its definition is quite clear. And as at the time that Constitution was put together, Nigeria was not this convoluted. That's even the more reason you need an amendment, a very viable amendment, and a structural amendment, not just.
Hello. Seems that we have.
Okay.
All right. There seems to be some sort of a network issue.
Yeah, but I think we have Barrister Philly back. We'd like you to complete your thoughts. Yes.
Yes, so we need a very strong structural amendment of the Constitution, okay? And issues like devolution of power falls under the...
Okay, some network challenges there. It would have been nice to get his thoughts on what he thinks. 6 months. But do we think, anyway, 6 months, is it enough? Back to
they're
Barrister.
going...
Six months is enough to put out that amendment.
All right.
Like I said before, we already have all the arguments for and against in the public domain. Before now, even the National Assembly before now, in 2018, did a very good job. Okay, then I think Kekuremadu was in charge of that session then on the amendment. All the items have been listed and entrenched. You understand? So all we need to do is just to go back to the archives, even at the National Assembly there. The propositions are there. Those who have made proposals, all are in the archives. So, but devolution of power is a fulcrum, is a major issue in that constitution. But that is the reason why resources are not there. And that's the reason you have a huge National Assembly, where you need to have three senators, and then you have for House of Rep, depending on the population of the state. And then what you have at the National Assembly, there are too many lawmakers. If we have devolution of power, you see that thing, that National Assembly, we may just have maybe one person representing the states. Okay. Then the main work will now be at the state level, the State House of Assembly will now be where you can now have the extraction of maybe 3 from each senatorial district, and then the House of Rep you can now have based on the population and the diversity of those places. But for the National Assembly, we shouldn't be having 306 and all that, because if we have devolution of power, the major issues we are supposed to be discussing at the center would have, chunked them down to the regions. Okay? So the regional assemblies of the country will now be the fulcrum, just like in the United States. Okay? How many lawmakers, how many congressmen represent a state in the U.S.? Okay? Because it's a true federal structure. The federal authority is just there to handle very minor issues. Okay, that has to do with defense and the rest of that. Then the main issue is discussed at the state levels, the state governors, then the legislature at the state levels, commissioners at the state level. They will now be the ones to manage the real issue of the state. And then Nigeria will grow. Each state will grow at their own pace.
Now, Barrister Philly, senior lawyer Olisa Agbakoba did recommend a few things. Many people have thrown their opinion into the public domain and discussion with regards to what sort of political restructuring we should have. He recommended 50% derivation fund. He also said they should implement the Oworonshoki report. And as we've seen, you forgot to also mention that devolution is one of the reasons why we're seeing mass defections from here, in different parties. They're saying they want to, plug to the center to get more benefits or dividends of democracy. So if you were a genie and you could restructure Nigeria, looking at its present economic realities and the yearnings and aspirations of the people, what sort of restructuring would you recommend at a time like this in our nationhood?
Yes, I mean, you can see that we have so centralized everything to the point that even politics is centralized. I mean, you got it right to say that that's the reason you have mass defection. A lot of people want to go to the center because the center seems to rule everything. Once the center blesses you or once the center chooses you, then you are chosen. Okay? But you see, where the people lies, the people who actually are the direct beneficiary, who are supposed to be the direct beneficiary of democracy, is not at the center. The direct beneficiary of democracy are the regions. Okay? So there's no point trying to centralize it. Look at the confusion. Look at the confusion we're into now, right now. Now, we have so centralized everything, including prison. We centralized it. Some time ago, one of the ministers of Interior in the past cried out that most of the inmates we have in the prison committed state offenses. And then the federal government had to keep them in the federal prison, and the federal government is spending so much to feed them. And at the same time, the federal government is still giving the states their rightful allocations, that the states should come and create, you see the confusion. The federal government was now calling the states through the minister, minister, okay? Because what the federal government is saying in effect is that the devolution of power is, we are tired of carrying this burden. We want devolution of power. That's exactly what they are saying. That's one. Two, under the Buhari regime, okay, Buhari had to sign an amendment so that states will be able to generate electricity. Before now, it's a federal government reserve. You understand? So we are going into the exclusive list to pluck the issue one after the other. Confusion. Instead of us to amend the constitution and give the region their requisite autonomy, okay, both economic, political, and marginal economy, so that they will be able to handle their own affairs and only come to the federal when they want to discuss external affairs, currency, defense. Okay? That is what they're supposed to do. But we've not done that wholesomely. Rather, we are looking at the issues, which one is more expedient to plug down into the concurrent list. And then we're making separate legislations to bring them down. Okay? If we have devolution of power, by now we have electricity. By now. The states that can generate with light, with water, will do that. The ones that can generate with wind will do that. The ones that can generate with the resources peculiar to them will do that. Okay, I can assure you that if we have devolution of power, by now we would have gone past the issue of electricity. But we're still trapped in it because we have a federal approach to electricity. With this landmass, this population, it's not going to be possible. It won't work. And the solution to this problem is that the state also will have the issue of insecurity today because of the lack of devolution of power. Because if we have devolution of power and the states are able to take care of their resources and take care of security of those resources, we will not be having insurgencies all over the place. Even if we have them, we will have minimized it to the barest minimum, okay, and be able to take care of these issues from the region. Because the attacks that are happening, insecurity attacks that are happening, it's not the federal government, it's not in Abuja. How many times has Abuja been attacked? How many times has a federal facility been attacked? Okay, it's the kidnapping we're talking about today is happening at the regions, at the grassroots. Okay, and then the police that is supposed to deal with it is a federal one. So, how exactly are you going to take charge and take control of a state when the state does not have, you know, in the Constitution, 1963 Constitution, where we had the regional authorities and all that? You notice that in 1963, down to that time, every region had its own constitution. Every region has its own constitution. It was a true federal structure with a parliamentary system of government in place. Okay, the constitution of Abia should not, the constitution of the Eastern region need not be the same constitution of the Western region. Okay, because of the peculiarities, the difference, the diversity, okay, of these regions, okay? And so Nigeria was well structured from 1963 Republican Constitution. We need to go back to that Republican Constitution, that document, because even in that document, that is even where you also have the issue of plebiscite and referendum. Okay, that is the document that led to the creation of the Midwestern region, if you remember. Okay, that is the document that allowed for self-determination, okay, through a legal process. So if we had retained that constitution, perhaps we would have been able to deal with Biafra effectively, that issue. We would have been able to deal with it the way it should be done by law. Okay, we would have been able to deal with so many issues the way the Cameroon used to be part of Nigeria before now. If you look at the first political party in Nigeria, that's the NNDP in 1923. The second political party in Nigeria was from the NCNC. Okay, that was in 1941. That particular political party has to do with the fact that Cameroon and Nigeria was one, but because the constitution at that time allowed for referendum.
All right.
Okay, they were allowed to go peacefully.
Okay. Mr. Afeli, thank you for joining us to share your thoughts about what the potential of devolution might be, what it would look like, and your thoughts regarding the constitution, whether to amend it or to get a brand new constitution. We always appreciate your thoughts here on the show.
Justice sector experts have called for reforms of the sector so as to build citizen trust in the judiciary and ensure the speedy dispensation of justice. This was during a 3-day workshop in Jos, the Plateau State capital, where they reviewed the administration of Nigeria's Criminal Justice Act, deliberating on strategies to aid its implementation. News Central's correspondent Chizoba Anelwe tells us more.
Nigeria's criminal justice system has been described as imbalanced, unfair, and slow in the dispensation of justice by many citizens. While these have been described as major challenges needing institutional reforms to tackle, this workshop, organized by the Clean Foundation, is holding to deliberate on ways to address these problems.
This 3 days engagement will bring about establishment of an independent ACDA state-level working group that will advocate and support in the establishment and support the establishment of the ACDMC and contribute to effective and sustainable implementation of ACDA here in Plateau State.
With the administration of Criminal Justice Act being regarded as a tool to transform the justice sector, stakeholders here say effective implementation is key.
Over the years, there's been a lot of abuse in the criminal justice process of people that interact or are somehow found themselves within the process. And so this law is to ensure that everyone is protected.
The Plateau State government, in its wisdom, through the Office of the Attorney General, has come up with the Law Reform Commission, and they are doing a very fantastic work in that regard to bring our laws up to speed in tandem with the current reality on ground.
It will be a joining of force with other civil society workers and also the the necessary stakeholders to ensure that implementation of this law itself have a very, very rigid and firm ground on in the plateau.
The program director of the Clean Foundation expressed confidence that the act, when truly implemented, will birth a stable and just society.
The essence for this particular law is to create a stable and just society and not to create the kind of imbalance that is still happening within the system.
Stakeholders here are hoping that recommendations from this workshop can help implement the Criminal Justice Act effectively. They say when this is done, confidence and trust can be restored to the judiciary. In Plateau State, for News Central, Chizoba Anelwe.
River State Governor Fubara says the state's ongoing peace talks are beginning to yield results, noting that genuine development can only thrive in an atmosphere of unity and stability. At a civic reception held in honor of the Deputy Governor, Professor Ngozi Odru, in Akabuka community, Ogba Egbema Ndoni local government area, Governor Fubara expressed satisfaction with the growing signs of reconciliation among political actors and urged citizens to continue to embrace peace.
We are not unaware of the importance of peace.
Movement.
And that is the reason why our disposition, our approach has always been towards maintaining peace. We can't develop in an environment of chaos. We can't attract any project to Akabuka when there is trouble.
I want to appreciate the former governor of Rivers State and the present Honorable Minister of FCT, His Excellency Sir Barrister Ezewonwike, for his role he played in my nomination as the Deputy Governor of this state and for ensuring the emergence of my boss, our governor, our people's governor, and myself.
Some 2 years ago, if we had come for this event, there are some persons that will not be here. But today they are here. Means there is a positive step and there is sign that truly peace has returned to Rivers State. So I want to thank everyone, more especially my Oga, the Honorable Minister was instrumental. So we appreciate that and we're not taking it for granted. So let me, on behalf of the government and the good people of Rivers State, assure everyone that we are committed to this peace and that we'll make sure everything that needs to be done and maintained so that development will come to all parts of Rivers State.
Reflecting on the past 2 years of political tension, the governor noted that former rivals now attend events together, a signal that the state is healing. He also appreciated the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, for his role in his emergence as governor. The correspondent, Biola Festus, reports that Governor Fubara also pledged to rehabilitate internal roads and renovate government secondary school Akabuka. Gentlemen, I'm very happy that that's happening.
This is where you say,
I need to say something. Like they say on social media, they don't later fold. Because we saw, I'm happy that they're at peace. But I don't know how I quite felt about the statement where, you know, she was talking about appreciating the president, the former minister of the FCT for his role in his nomination.
Dwell on the past.
Especially because the former minister was highly criticized at the time when a number of these commissioners said he played a role in their nominations, and you know there was the speculation that fueled what then led to them leaving their political party and then coming back later. The lawmakers, I beg your pardon. So there's some things that are best left unsaid.
Yes, so let's leave it in the past. What is important now is that peace has returned to Rivers State. There's love in the air. I would like to take this medium to wish my Rivers people and politicians especially happy Valentine's Day in advance. There's so much love in the air.
I don't understand.
That's sarcasm. Your sarcasm is so loud.
Okay, so there's so much love in the air. So let's maintain it. You can see the governor that said, do I look like I missed that place? That was
exactly,
that look at him now, he's very happy.
So what was the switch?
And he said some people would not have been here if we held this event a few months ago. They're there. So let's celebrate positivity. Let's celebrate the spirit of love and empire.
Sarcasm doesn't look good on you. Go ahead, Joe.
Your nickname.
I'm not being sarcastic. I don't support Arsenal, and I'm not a fan of Bukayo Saka. Nor do I live on Saka Tinubu.
Stop before we pinch you here. Stop.
But then why do you guys think I'm saying?
I think, Benga, this is a good motion to be driven towards which way Nigeria. You understand?
Okay.
Because I remember this move. I don't know if you guys remember this move where they did like this. And did like this and say, this is black though, but they said this is what they want.
But it's with me.
It's with me.
You know, time reveals, time tells a lot.
What we're saying here is, I mean, we like the fact that there's peace. Let the state enjoy the dividends of true democracy. However, the question there is, in that line, is it true in the aspect of being a democracy? Because, like Olive just highlighted, while we're watching the video, we're in shock. This is the deputy governor thanking the FCT minister, saying, thank you so much for the role you played and so on. But it also goes to show that Wike is not a pushover. The FCT minister
he's the real master strategist.
Understands what he does, and he knows what
I think if there's one thing you must take away from this is that Wike sabi ball. He knows how to play his game, and he's a real master strategist.
Valuable lessons in life in this, that you can't fight someone to the finish.
No, you can't. Well, no, you can't. No. It depends on who is fighting. Wike fought to the finish.
Pick your battles wisely.
Wike fought to the finish.
And it's also a lesson. I think we should have a special lessons to learn from River State.
Both political and moral lessons. That's all we should.
Let's move on to another conversation. Yes. Governor Chukwuma Soludo, an economist, former CBN chief, and now APGA's leading voice in Anambra State, has made a pledge that's raising eyebrows and blood pressure across the country. The governor of Anambra State, who is running for a second term, has pledged 1 million naira cash reward for every ward won by APGA in the governorship election. Now, while many supporters call it an incentive to woo voters, critics call it vote buying, a move legal experts warn that may violate the Electoral Act. Opposition parties are also demanding answers over the implications of this pledge by the governor. Well, joining us for the discussion on what exactly Governor Soludo meant when he made the statement is National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, who is also Senior Special Assistant on Media to the Governor, Mazi Ejimofo Okpara. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much. Let me apologize for hooking up a bit late. I had other, equally, the season we are in, so it's hopping from one. We just have to appease our voters. We have to talk to our voters, Okay. So that's the season. So it begins every morning and ends, it has no end.
All right.
We finish here, we go to other areas.
We know that it's season to campaign season. We can see you are fully in campaign mode. We're going on a very quick break. When we come back, we'll head into the conversation and dissect it properly. Please stay tuned.
You're welcome back, and we're discussing events in Anambra State where the elections are inching very close to we're getting close to the November 8th D-Day for the Anambra gubernatorial elections.
Absolutely. We also have with us this morning the Senior Special Assistant on Media to the Governor, Mazi Ejimofo Okpara. Thank you very much for joining us. And let's get straight into it. I don't know if our production team has the video clip. If we can't play the clip and have you respond to it, because of course there are many who have said that what the governor has said amounts to inducing voters. Section 121 of the Electoral Act prohibits financial inducement of voters. So if he pledges to reward voters, or to give local governments money and all that, is that not an inducement of voters? How do you respond to that?
Okay, good morning and thank you very much. And, one thing we are so proud of, particularly myself, about Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, is that he is one man who speaks with a lot of clarity. And when he speaks, you can't second guess him. And that is why it is difficult for anyone to misrepresent him. Now, I am happy you said he's speaking at a campaign. He spoke at a campaign, and obviously he was speaking to our party members of the All Progressives Grand Alliance. If you want to look at it in a way that is logical, very logical, and I can bet you that there is nothing against the Electoral Act that Mr. Governor has actually done. When you talk about campaign funds, what is the spirit or the contemplation of the crafters of campaign funds in the Electoral Act? Okay. What is the spirit behind, having to approve a campaign fund and even to the point of setting limits as to campaign spendings and all that? Now, let me tell us one thing. You look at the way our political structure is in Nigeria, you would realize that political party members constitute maybe less than 5% of the total number of voters registered to vote. And of course, when we talk about registered voters, you also have non-partisans majorly as part of that population. So when you now have to talk about the political process, you're not just talking about the totality of the electorates or the totality of the the voters within the voting population. You're also speaking to members of your political party whose job and responsibility is to also mobilize and canvass for support for the party to bring about victory, for the party. And let me tell you, the job of a party agent or the job of a party canvasser is not contemplated to be a thankless job. I don't know if you get that point. It's not conducive to
okay.
It's not. Wait, hold on. Let me complete my thoughts so you don't, disrupt me. Sorry. So it's not a thankless job. So in doing that assignment, of course, the party has to make adequate provision, for incentive to incentivize the person who has elected to do that job for the party, to do that job. And when the governor was talking about, telling the party members to go all out and mobilize, support and mobilize vote, to ensure that we have an increased voter participation on the day of the election. He was speaking, or he is speaking to members of the party who should go all out and do that. And, part of the things you must understand about labor or responsibility is that incentives are the heart of speed. Incentives are the heart of even dedication. So we are not talking about giving money to voters or going to buy voters. No, we are talking about mobilizing our members and incentivizing them to go all out, to go and canvass for vote. It's just like the job of a marketer in maybe a manufacturing company. If you have a product and nobody's talking about it, or nobody's motivated to go talk about it, it is just the product will remain on your shelf. And you know that Anambra is one of the states. Before I even get to Anambra, if you come to the voting statistics in Nigeria, the Southeast happens to be one of the regions with the least voting participation in the country. Now, it is even much worse when you bring it down into regional analysis. Within the region, Southeast, Anambra happens to even be the least. In 2021, for instance, we had 2.7 million registered voters. And of that 2.7 million registered voters, what percentage of that population decided to vote? Less than 5%. So if you add up the number of votes cast, and before even talking about the margin of win or the difference between the winner and all those who every other candidate, the total vote cast was less than 200,000, less than 10% of the registered voters. So we have a situation in our hands. We call it voter apathy, and that's exactly what we experience here. So if anything that you must do to increase voter participation within the confines of the law, I believe it is not something anyone should raise eyebrow, to raise his or her eyebrows for, except somebody who has something to benefit, under or with voter apathy.
Okay, just to
inform best interest for voters to be apathetic.
Just to quickly explain for the benefit of our
voter participation.
If I may please interject, for the benefit of our audience, to share quickly what was said. It was a campaign rally, like you rightly mentioned, on Saturday. He had announced a cash reward for every ward won by ABGA. And I'm just going to quote him. He says, "When we were campaigning for the Senate, we knew we were going to win every ward in the South Senatorial Zone. But we still had some incentives. Any ward that ABGA won received 1 million naira, and we won all the wards in Orumba South. We promised each of these wards 1 million naira, and next week we will redeem it. For November 8th, any ward that wins again will receive 1 million naira, while the first 3 performing wards will get 5 million naira, 2 million naira, and 1 million naira. This was what he told the crowd at Umunze, Orumba South local government area on Saturday. And just to reference Section 121 of the Electoral Act 2022 of Nigeria, which says any person who directly or indirectly or themselves or through any person on their behalf corruptly makes any gift, loan, offer, promise, or procurement to or for any other person in order to induce that person to procure or to endeavor to procure the election of a candidate to a legislative house or elective office or the vote of a voter at an election," and then goes on to list a number of these. Many have argued that this falls into the category of what was prohibited by Section 121, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022.
No, they are not one and the same. I may not be a lawyer, but the spirit of what you have read, they are not one and the same. Parties must go out to mobilize their members for eventual...
I don't know if you heard the part that I said, not just procure, but endeavor. It says, in order to induce that person to procure or to endeavor to procure the election of a candidate or to a legislative house or elective office or the vote of a voter or an election. The issue here is the promising of monetary returns. That's the issue here.
And I'm telling you that parties, I said we are speaking to our party members. I don't forget. You have to understand. See, the law is. They say the law is an act.
And the party members not Nigerian citizens.
Let me tell you.
Before they are party members, are they not primarily Nigerian citizens?
We are speaking to our party members and mobilizing them for victory. So, whichever way you want to even see it, let's even put it this way. When you talk about, vote buying, oftentimes is often seen as, what you give to the voters before or during election. Now, when we're talking about mobilizing our members and our canvassers and our agents to go out and increase the participation of our people who are, who should be part of the electoral process, it is in
but the campaign venue was not open to only ABGA carrying members.
Go and tell them why it should be ABGA. And in the course of doing this, of course, every workman, has his pay. And part of the reason why it is announced this way is to make for competition. Is to make for competition, to make it very competitive. So now you have, for instance, Agwata telling the governor, don't worry, we're going to mobilize the most. We'll mobilize more than Orumba not.
So
no, Orumba not to say no.
You can only make it competitive financially.
Very interesting. So when you talk about vote buying in the state, we have parties that have the antecedent or that are well known and established as parties who go all out to buy votes. In 2021, it was very manifest. If you remember the classical case that happened at Dunukofia, which has become known as the Ukulu situation, where a particular party's agent was on ground at the polling unit and inducing voters with some cash amount to say, come and vote for our party. You saw people who came up there and resisted him. Let me not mention, I wouldn't want to mention the name of the party.
Yeah,
what I want to understand is that there's a world of difference between vote buying and voter mobilization.
Okay, Maziopara, let's take it that there's a difference between vote buying and voter, I don't know how you put it. Mobilization. Don't you have a party that has, your party, don't you have a committee that can handle this mobilization in its own office or offices, different wards, where you can meet them, mobilize them at their wards? And secondly, that gathering didn't seem like it was just ABGA faithfuls that were there. It seems there were other people there, except you want to clearly state here. We would like you to state categorically.
There was exclusively.
That was exclusive for ABGA members alone. Then we will do our findings and possibly share with you that maybe.
As a matter of fact, if you look at the scroll bar, because all of these processes are beamed live on television. If you look at the scroll bar of all our campaign rallies, what you see is ABGA campaign rally in A local government or B local government or C local government. So the fact that we are talking about ABGA, it is an ABGA affair.
But it's
so
ABGA
to the conference, it is now for you to prove.
ABGA party members, not first Nigerian citizens before they are ABGA party members. And the laws not apply. Again, if I go further to read subsection 2 of section 121, it says, a voter commits an offense of bribery where before or during an election, directly or indirectly, by his or herself or by any other person on his or her behalf, receives, agrees or contracts for any money, gift, loan, or valuable consideration, office, place or employment for his or herself or for any other person for voting or agreeing to vote or for refraining or agreeing to refrain from voting at such election. I think the point we're arguing about here is money. But just to quickly add, because we're out of time.
That session that says before or during.
Just to agree, because we're out of time, right? Just to mention that.
It is not, exactly.
You have said that it is not bribery. But I'm sure that this is still.
For the sake of clarity, it is not inducement, it is incentivization.
Okay, so agreeing but not conceding to the fact, that it is not bribery. If I may please ask this question because we're out of time. Agreeing but not conceding to the fact that it is not bribery, will you at least agree that ABGA has gotten to desperate means? And ABGA is desperate at this point.
So why the financial inducement?
A party that is dominant on ground has no need for desperation.
So why the inducement?
That ABGA is a religion in Anambra State. There is no family you go to in Anambra that you don't have at least one ABGA member, if not ABGA members. So we have no reason to be desperate. As a matter of fact, anyone who has come to study the political season, that's this political season, will tell you that there is a no contest. There's a no contest. Beyond all the noise of minorities having their say or raising dust where there is none, it tells you that these people, whichever party you call them, they are not on ground. On November 8th, you will see it. We saw it on August 16th at the by-election in Anambra South and Onitsha North 1, and we saw that APGA had over 99.9%, victory at that poll. So, and the same thing will repeat itself because it's a given that when it has to do with Anambra's elections in Anambra, that APGA would have the day. APGA is a pervasive force, a dominant force in Anambra state politics, especially during the governorship elections. So you don't. If there's anyone who is coming to say that even if we fold our arms and not even say a word, I can bet you for free that APGA will win by over 70%.
So you're not intimidated by the popularity of Judge Moghalu. The popularity of Judge Moghalu.
You cannot be putting Judge Moghalu and popularity in the same sentence now. It doesn't work. You can't put Judge Moghalu and popularity in the context of this election in the same sentence.
Why?
No.
The obedient movement have thrown their weight behind Judge Moghalu. Doesn't that count as something? The obedient movement.
Which of the ones on Twitter or the ones in Abuja and Lagos? Or that
was the same thing that was said about the obedient movement in the 2023 election.
Let me tell
and
you
saw their faults.
The obedience in Anambra, you have the clip at a rally in Awka South local government. The leader of the obedience movement in Anambra State, I'm saying Tanko Yunusa, he doesn't live in Anambra, he doesn't stay there, he doesn't even understand the voting pattern in Anambra State. So you can't be quoting Tanko Yunusa, who is neither a voter in Anambra nor even an electorate here. I'm telling you about the leader of the obedient movement in Anambra State, who stormed our rally with thousands of their members to declare total support for APGA and Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo.
Well, that's not the report that we got. The report that we got was that the obedient movement threw their support behind Judge Moghalu. Final question, Nicholas Ukachukwu, we've seen a number of governors moving to the APC, pledging allegiance to the center. The APC is the party in power at the federal level. Do you not feel intimidated that at some measure, or in some measure, the APC will be able to wield influence that would be able to help Prince Nicholas Ukachukwu in the elections?
These are the issues that, when you ask these questions, these are some of the issues that I think journalists should begin to even, resist from even asking. Because when you talk about wield influence, for me, what I hear is, voter intimidation, subversion of the people's will, and every other negative that has to do with election process. Because I'm not seeing where you are saying if Nicholas Ukachukwu stands any chance with the electorate, or if he's seen or defined as competent enough to lead the Anambra state of the now.
But Mr. Soludo did not think about competency when he was offering 1 million naira.
He said?
Mr. Soludo did not rely on his competency when he was offering 1 million naira.
He relied on what? What did he rely on? I'm telling you that as of today, Governor Soludo happens to be the only governor in known history in Anambra State who is coming for a second term re-election on the basis of his sterling performance.
But why is he offering money?
Before you say Jack, people are looking out to you.
I only brought that up as well. I only brought that up because he said journalists shouldn't ask such questions that when we do what you're hearing is intimidation.
Before we go, following up on what my colleague said, talking about
part of the narrative at all, that the center is coming to wield influence. It shouldn't be part of the narrative because everyone who is standing for election should stand for election.
I would rephrase that. There might be citizens in Anambra State that might want an alignment of the center with India Anambra, and they might see Mr. Ikachukwu's gubernatorial candidacy as a viable option to achieve that, so as to get more benefits from the center. After all, governors that have been defecting have been using that as an excuse. So it makes him a viable proposition to some. How do you address that issue with regards to Mr. Ikachukwu?
The fact is, oftentimes when I come on air and I'm asked questions about Mr. Ukachukwu, Nicholas, whatever, I often want to ask for commercials. Like I often want to ask for to be paid, because it's most often when we talk about him that he's even talked about, that people even get to know that somebody like him exists in this process. So it kind of, I kind of, maybe after now, you guys would have to, sign some check for me for even mentioning his name in this conversation. Because when you come to Anambra, this is somebody that, how do I put it? He's not even in the top 11. You get it. To be modest, he's not even in the top 11 in terms of considering, in terms of the consideration of persons who should lead Anambra of today.
Okay.
He's not in the top 11.
All right, let's not mention.
When you talk about him aligning to the center, the question is, at what point did he even move to this center? And does the center even know him? Does the center recall with him as a progressive?
So does the center know? Does the center know your
stowaways? These are stowaways. People who tried to, people who see political parties as SPVs. So wherever they go to, they just want to hop on any party, just any party, just to be seen as part of.
Maziopara, please, we have to go. We have to go, and would appreciate if you can just answer the question straightforward. A hospital was hurriedly commissioned. The videos are circulating online. There were rumors that, treatment had been taking place.
That 4 surgeries had happened.
4 surgeries. But in the Anambra have come out to say that that's a big lie, a big fat lie, as they put it. That the governor just hurriedly put that as a way to heighten his chances at the elections. Can you categorically tell us here, live on this program, that that hospital has carried out 4 surgeries and it is working perfectly as we speak now? Because we have people there, we have our reporters there, they can quickly go and confirm.
To you, just on Saturday, the first successful delivery took place at Anako, at General Hospital Anako. Now, when I saw that video, that cocky video made by the director of mobilization, or is a deputy director of mobilization, I think, of the APC, one Barrister Richard, the one who was wearing the pajamas. He's a deputy director of the APC, one of their directors for this election and all that. He went there and just did some, will I say, grandstanding, and he came up to say nothing happened. See, it is almost impossible for you to deny facts that are verifiable.
Okay.
You have your correspondents. You have your correspondents who are in Anambra. Send them to the Solution Hospital in Anambra.
Okay.
And let them bring to you the hospital records and show you the patient's, maybe if it's allowed, the patient's history, and establish for you whether or not the governor commissioned a hospital was.
All right. So
it's not in our character.
We have to go.
It's not in our character for us to go out and deceive the people. That hospital is up and running.
We have to go now. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We hope that we can have you back. We know that it's campaign season, back to back. We wish you all the best at the polls, and we look forward to seeing you again. More importantly, we want the best man to win for the benefit of Anambra. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure being here.
All right, great to have you as well. Let's now go on a break. When we come back from this break, we'll be bringing you the breakfast headlines brought to you by Benga Baroa. Stay with us.
Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. Well, let's quickly take a look at the headlines very quickly. I'm Joe Hansen, not Benga Baroa. We'll begin the news with a looming healthcare crisis as the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors have announced an indefinite nationwide strike set to begin on November 1. NARD President Dr. Mohammed Sulaiman said the action follows the federal government's failure to meet the union's demands after a 30-day ultimatum. The doctors are protesting unpaid arrears, poor welfare conditions, and what they describe as unfair treatment of members. The strike is expected to disrupt medical services across public hospitals nationwide. Earlier, the President of the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, Dr. Mohammed Sulaiman, joined us in the news, and let's take a look at what he had to say about the strike.
In the Nigerian health sector, and we decided to give an extension of 30 days. Unfortunately, that extension has expired. We have only had one interaction with government that lasted less than an hour on the 26th of the. And I took my report back because I was summoned by the National Executive Council for an emergency National Executive Council meeting. And the National Executive Council reviewed the situation. Let me give you a highlight of a few of the challenges that we have. Number one, we have had some of our members, medical officers, their promotion arrears since 2021 has not been paid. We have 35% salary arrears that has not been fulfilled by the federal government for over 2 years. We have the accoutrement allowance that has not been fulfilled by federal government for over 8 years.
The federal government is set to introduce a new law that will require all public officials to fly Nigerian airlines on international routes. Aviation Minister Festus Keyamo unveiled the proposal on Sunday during the ceremonial send-off of Air Peace's inaugural direct flight from Abuja to London Heathrow. The proposed Fly Nigeria Act would make it mandatory for government officials to fly local carriers except when no Nigerian airline operates the route. Keyamo pointed out that similar laws exist in countries like the United States and India and said the new policy would boost confidence in Nigerian airlines and help strengthen the country's aviation sector. In a strong rebuke, the organized private sector of Nigeria has rejected the Senate's proposed amendment to the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund Act, describing the move by the Senate as a dangerous attempt to hijack and politicize the management of workers' social protection funds. The OPSN, which includes key industry groups like the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and NECA, says the move risks politicizing workers' social protection funds and undermining transparency. They are calling on the Senate to immediately halt the legislative process, warning that the changes would weaken the fund's governance and open the door for political interference in violation of international labor standards. The private sector groups also criticized lawmakers for prioritizing this amendment over more pressing legislative needs like the stalled Nigeria Labor Law Bill. Let's tell you that Ivorians await the outcome of Saturday's presidential election with incumbent Alassane Ouattara widely expected to secure a fourth term. 83-year-old leader has governed the world's largest cocoa producer since 2011, overseeing a period of economic growth and relative stability. The vote, however, was marred by a fragmented opposition and the disqualification of two major candidates, raising concerns about fairness. Around 9 million citizens were eligible to vote, but turnout appeared uneven across the country. Polling stations in Abidjan and the south saw low participation, while northern regions, where Ouattara enjoys a strong backing, reported high numbers. The Electoral Commission said results would be released between Sunday and Monday, with legitimacy concerns likely to follow the outcome. And that's all the news we have for you for this hour. Don't forget to tune in and stay with us from now up until you can also enjoy a fuller news bulletin at 12 for the 12 report. Breakfast Central continues. The front pages of the newspapers is up next. Stay with us.
They call it defection, but in Nigeria, it's not defection, it's migration from one party to another, from one promise to another, from one side of power to wherever the grass looks greener. Since the 2023 elections, defections have become a national sport. According to the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, since 2023 elections, the APC has significantly increased its strength in both chambers of the National Assembly through defections. In the Senate, APC seat rose from 59 to 73, securing a two-thirds majority, while the House of Representatives defections boosted the APC numbers from 162 to 207, not through elections, but through absorption. Over 300 politicians have switched parties between 2024 and 2025. And what do they tell us? I am aligning with the center. I am joining the ruling party to bring more benefits to my people. But let's be honest, if your people truly mattered, would loyalty, ideology, or principle be negotiable? Defections used to be rare, now they're routine. Studies have shown that lack of internal party democracy and the lure of power drives nearly 60% of all defections in Nigeria. Translation: politics has lost its spine and principle has become optional. Today's critics are tomorrow's cabinet nominees. Yesterday's opposition leaders now sing the praises of the same government they once condemned. No ideology, no conviction, just convenience. And the voters were left watching the same actors swapping jerseys, pretending it's a new game. You vote for manifesto, they switch the moment it suits them, and your vote becomes a joke. Defectors claim alignment with the center benefits their constituents, but when loyalty is for sale, what about accountability? When parties no longer stand for anything, how do citizens hold them to task? Defections weaken democracy. They turn opposition into ornamentation. They're just there for show. Because when everyone joins the ruling party, who's left to ask the hard questions? As another wave of defections sweep the land, we must ask if politicians can belong anywhere, who truly belongs to Nigeria and Nigerians? If power replaces purpose and politics becomes performance, the people once again are left behind. Good morning, Nigerians.
Welcome back. Now let's go straight to the front pages of the papers. After which way Nigeria looking at the mass defection, or you could call it the transfer window, which is still open up until 2027. Our guest to analyze the front pages of the newspapers is public affairs analyst. You can call him Mr. Theophilus Agbakoba. Joins us live.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to join you this morning.
Wearing olive green.
No, this is not olive
Extending
green.
the olive
Why do you
branch.
want to claim everything to be olive? This is army green.
This is olive green.
Thank you.
He's extending the olive branch.
I see.
It's good to have you.
Let's take our very first paper very quickly, and you can join us as well to analyze when you share your thoughts. The leadership is our very first paper, and we would run through it like a tsunami as fast as we can. Analysts upbeat as Dangote refinery begins expansion to 1.4 million barrels per day. Seems like good news. National Exam Council sets up UK Centre, targets 10 others. Resident doctors start indefinite strike November 1st. Nigeria records 50 billion cryptocurrency transactions in 1 year. Okay, all right. And then we have Lagos 3.366 trillion naira budget records, 80% performance. I think that was said by a commissioner, by the way. A police arrest members of killer gang in Sokoto. Then we have ruling party disowns Congress timetable. Stand-up fight against Boko Haram. Others, Arawa Forum, Afenifere tell new service chiefs. We're going to start off with that story, which you.
And the picture there is of protests in Cameroon.
Oh yeah.
Today is a decisive day.
Yeah, it's taking a different turn already.
The commission is meant to announce presidential results, and we'll definitely be monitoring.
Yes, we also had our correspondent who was live in Cameroon share a bit of information on X. Catherine, where she also explained that 2 people have been killed and some have been injured. So far, so good. It's heightening up. Let's put it that way. But let's start off with the very first story. I'd like you to react to Mr. Katuba. Step up, fight against Boko Haram. Others, Arawa, Afenifere tell new service chiefs. The shuffling that we saw over the weekend, it came as a shock. It came as a surprise to some. For many, it was like, okay, what's really going on? Is it as a result of the purported coup?
You know, there's something that happens in, you know, every time there is something going on within the military, those who become privy to it could run to town and publish something because they know that imminently something is going to happen. I'm sure the president already knew that some of the service chiefs, their tenure, they're already going up to retirement age. Some of them are going to be 60 next year.
And 35 years in service.
35 years in service. So that was already in the card. And so the fact that the rumor came out and this happened and the celebration of independence was shelved, you know, fueled and gave flesh or meat to the rumor. What we can't say if that reshuffling was as a result of the coup scare.
Yeah.
But the president already had a plan, or it's part of the process that they were going to go.
So in its announcement, the presidency said, okay, service chiefs have been changed. We wish them well in their duty for serving Nigeria, blah, blah, blah. Do they owe Nigerians a duty of telling us why they were removed in the first place?
No, not the way. You see, that's what I'm saying. The president has the prerogative, the constitutional powers, to change, yes, to hire and fire his military chiefs at any time without giving any explanation to the country. He might give you a reason, but he's obliged not to give,
But don't we deserve these explanations?
Because it's security. And that is the highest security apparatus of the country. And the president surely will, remember the Buhari days. As soon as he removed them, he sent some out as ambassadors. So the president has the way and has the capacity and the authority to do what he has done. And the coup scare has been denied by everyone, denied by the government, denied by the military themselves. And so to me, it's something that Nigeria should not really, because tomorrow this one could be removed for one reason or the other. And if there is no, satisfactory performance, they also can be removed. Okay. They all know that much, and it's something that when I heard of the coup scare, I was a bit worried, but later I started giving in to the fact that it could just be somebody who was overzealous and wanted to run to town just before the change.
Okay, that's starting to look a bit more practical, if we want to say it that way. Let's look at this particular one. Resident doctors started definite strike November 1. We also took it in the news. The doctors say the agreements have not been reached. We had the president join us earlier in the news. Are we seeing a very slow approach to solving these incessant strikes?
Well, like I said, and like I say always, the problems of Nigeria are multifaceted. It's quite sometimes very overwhelming if you are in government and there's a lot of expectations. All of these agitations, they are legitimate. Mm-hmm. They are all looking for better conditions of service. And for doctors, I will say that it is out of patriotism that you have a lot of them working here. Also, part of appreciating a country that have trained them at a subsidized rate, because many of these doctors got trained at a subsidized rate. And so out of that, we should also then, as a nation, reward them adequately for their patriotism, for choosing to remain behind and serve this country in spite of the beautiful law and the greens that are on the other side. Mm-hmm. And so I think they should do something quick to avoid the strike, because the agitation is legitimate. They want good reward for their effort, and also the conditions of service should be improved so that the quality of health care that we have can continue to improve instead of a decline.
So we can take everything you just said now and also apply to education and housing.
Yes. It can be applied everywhere, but I think the doctors should be treated specially.
Do we have the money to address some of these challenges?
Well, we don't have money for everything, but we must prioritize. Healthcare is actually, when you look at the days of Ebola, COVID, that's where you begin to see that medical personnel are another form of military. They are medical military men. The kind of work they do, the kind of risk they take.
The frontline
people. They save this nation at most critical times, and there's no way I will call on the government to quickly look at their grievances. This thing has been too long now, and it's not been resolved. So I think we can say that they are not moving as fast as they should, and I think they should do something quick.
All right. I think we have a call coming in.
No, I think we have our correspondent on a conversation we had earlier on concerning the demolitions in Oworonshoki. But let's see if we can connect with him. Israel Eferable is live on ground to join us this morning before we continue with the newspaper front pages. Israel, if you can hear us, I'm sure we're waiting to hear the latest report from you concerning the demolitions. Can you give us the latest updates concerning the demolitions in Oworonshoki? Can you hear us? Okay, we'll try as much as possible to see if we can connect with Israel Eferable, who is live at Oworonshoki, to give us the latest updates. Remember, it's one of our major topics that we had today here on Breakfast Central. Olive, we're going to the next paper, the Vanguard.
All right, the Vanguard newspaper. NECA, man, Nasima rejects Senate's NSITF takeover, warn against politicians of Workers' Fund, say move to amend Act threatens transparency and violates ILO's convention. I'll sack incompetent contractors, says Okpewulu. Enugu government arrests man for defiling his 2 daughters. Ah! Stories like this make my skin crawl terribly. Serap to NNPCL, account for missing 22.3 billion naira, $49.7 million, 14.3 million pounds, and 5.2 million euros oil funds as well. Resident doctors declare indefinite nationwide strike from October 31st. Nigeria loses $6.8 billion to oil production shortfalls in 8 months. And then we also have Dangote expands refinery to
1.4 million barrels per day.
1.4 million
will make it the
barrels.
largest single train refinery in the entire world. Something Nigerians should be proud of.
All right.
Yeah. And also, I would like to make a comment on the front page. You have the coordinating minister of the economy, Mr. Wale Edun, and the chairman board of directors of Afrexim Bank, Mr. Wale Edun, taking pictures. And the news reports, popular online news reports, said this man that is looking hale and hearty here and taking pictures said that he was in a coma and the president was shopping for a replacement for the minister, and they haven't come out to, apologize for that or issue a rebuttal. It's quite sad. We need to do better.
All right.
We really need to do better.
Yeah.
Okay, still on the front page. I want us to start with the Serap to an NPCL story, account for missing.
But before we go there, let's join our correspondent live. Israel Eforobo is in Oworonshoki live to give us an update on the demolition exercise carried out by the Lagos state government in Oworonshoki. Israel, good morning to you. Please, could you give us an update on the situation where you are?
Well, good morning, guys. And, it's a really early morning for residents here at Oworonshoki, as the area is tense. That's the word. The area is tense.
We seem to be having issues with the audio. We'll try to reconnect when we can sort out the audio. But let's start with the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. Serap to NNPCL. Account for missing 22.3 billion naira, $49.7 million, 14.3 million pounds, and 5.2 million euros oil funds. Is Serap just wasting its time?
No, they have a duty to.
Are you the analyst?
Exactly. I'm asking
you asked it. You didn't address that.
But we are to have a discussion.
And you know why I'm asking if Serap is just wasting their time? Because this is not the first time we've called for transparency within the NNPCL, even from the leadership of the NNPCL, even from those who have. We saw Lamido Sanusi's statement. So this is not the first time we've heard calls for transparency. So will this call be?
Well, what we need to find out is what period to what period is this? Is this within the tenure of this current leadership, or Emele Kyari's time, or is it from a period? Sometimes it could be from a 10-year period. I don't have details. I've not read this full story. So what Serap is doing is good. It's calling government to accountability, so they must be commended. And if this is a call that the NNPC must respond to, they need to do that quickly, because it's been a tough one. Mele Kyari and his group are currently facing the FCC probe over the spendings on the refineries that they told us that started working, and we discovered later that they were not working. That was another big thing, or it's another big thing that has not been finalized, only to hear of this. So the call of Serap is welcomed and commendable. It's for those concerned to actually give explanation.
Okay.
I mean, just to clarify, this letter was dated October 25th, 2025, and signed by Serap's Deputy Director, Kolawole Oludari. They demanded that the NNPC ensure the full recovery and return of the diverted or misappropriated funds to the Treasury without further delay. And I mean, there are more details in there that we probably cannot get into now.
Yes.
But let's move on now to our next story. Bingo.
It would be nice for us to look at, because this story has been carried in all newspapers, so it talks about the importance of this story. Dangote expands refinery capacity from 650,000 barrels a day to about 1.4 million barrels per day. What are the implications of this? And maybe you're not the right person I should be asking this question. And why are we paying 920 naira per litre? And why was there no flyer that was put out? Well, because when Dangote Refinery wants to reduce PMS price, they put out it in the newspaper front pages, they drop a flyer and things like that. But they came like a thief in the night. And I went to buy petrol and I saw 920 naira a litre.
But we heard the announcement that prices have gone up to that price. It was published in newspapers. Now, NNPC took the lead in the new prices. Actually,
can it come down?
Yeah, well, at this rate, Nigeria still enjoys some of the lowest petrol prices across the sub-region, and we must continue to enjoy that. 920 is still a good price if you compare it with neighboring countries and even other nations. It is not subsidized, so it's good price. It's not, if you compare it with subsidized nations, you'll be doing a wrong comparison. But look at everywhere petrol is not subsidized, you'll find out that this price is not a bad price. It's possible it can come down as the performance of the naira is, if the naira is gaining more in the market, as the naira gain more, we're supposed to reflect in pump prices. So I'm confident that we must celebrate what Dangote is doing. You see, from 600 to 1.2 is audacious. And this is a positive news for Nigeria.
1.4,
and this is the benefit of a deregulated, privatized sector. And this is what will happen because Dangote is moving and taking this giant leap when we're expecting a Boa refinery and some other refineries that are coming up. If this continue in this manner, the full potential of the oil industry will come to this country and it will create employment, it will create value chains. And so we must commend Dangote.
Principalities,
well, they are not there, they are still there, they'll continue to fight. You know, the damage, the economic damage to all of these sectors is massive.
But in the same light, the headline, just by the left-hand side of the Vanguard, says Nigeria loses $6.8 billion to oil production shortfalls in 8 months. So,
which months are they talking about?
In 8 months, they says records 93.7 billion barrels shortfall, 2.05 barrels per day target.
We are talking
no longer
about,
realistic this year.
I don't understand what they are saying.
Says experts.
Please, first we have surpassed our OPEC quota. Which shortfall are they referring to?
They're saying...
In the first 8 months of 2025, they're saying they're raising concerns over adequate funding of the 2025 national budget. They're saying that Nigeria has recorded crude oil production shortfall of about 93.74 million barrels in the first 8 months. Well, and that this shortfall indicates about $6.848 shortfall in oil revenue.
Is it in relation to our projected production on the budget or what we were producing before compared to what we are producing now? This shortfall need to be put in context so we understand what they are saying. Did we say we will do 2,000 barrels?
So they say here that the 2025 budget was predicated on a daily crude oil production target of 2.06 million barrels.
Absolutely.
But NUPRC data showed actual output average 1.673 million barrels per day during the 8-month period, indicating that there's an average shortfall of about 390,000 barrels per day.
Beautiful. I need to go study what the budget proposal, because this is really, really, I think for a government that was producing about 1.1 million barrels to say they will predicate 2025 budget, that doesn't sound realistic.
Okay. Let's move on to another story.
I'll sack incompetent contractors, says Okwebolo. We saw the working governor was stuck in traffic he was stuck in a flood.
Was it the current governor or the past governor? Because that place, they have always been stuck there. Even Obaseki was stuck there.
Yes, so
why did not move that place, the legendary...
Why can't they fix it?
That portion
can you give us a context
let me tell you,
that
portion of Edo State have defied every solution. It looked like one of the lowest points of that state around that the New Market Road area. and Obaseki, all governors have been found stuck
Even the
there.
current governor
why have they not
fixed
fixed it?
It's a very tough area.
No, engineers can do something about
They
it.
can, but even the biggest intervention in that area has been by Oshomole. He brought some respite to that area. But any time it rains and you are in Edo State, it's always like that. In every of that stretch, in spite of what Shomole have done and every other governor. So Edo State has a very interesting topography, very difficult, topography that we must understand that these floods will come.
You shouldn't excuse. Look, volcanic areas, low islands, Maldives, there's no place in the world where you don't have geographical challenges that can't fix it. So
they could be
are they supposed to just leave it like that?
No, but it's not a regular thing. It's only when there is a heavy downpour, and then this flash flood that goes away after some time.
Okay.
I can assure you, the Edo is a difficult terrain. The governors, from government to government, they can use these things to mock themselves.
And the governor,
the next governor that will come,
will
the same flood, will be stuck there.
And the governor saying he will sack incompetent contractors.
Yes, that one.
Does that not?
But that one is that one is in relation to something completely different. All right, but let's go on a very quick.
Let's go to Israel
we're
first.
Israel first.
Let's quickly see if we can reach Israel very quickly before we go on that break. Olive.
All right, let's connect to our correspondent Israel Ferrable, who's in Oworonshoki, to give us updates on the demolition exercise being carried out by the Lagos State government there. Good morning once again, Mr. Ferrable.
Can you hear me now? Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
Fantastic, finally. So it's been 2 nights of horror and terror, as some have described it here in Oworonshoki. I'm standing exactly at the bus stop of Iyanaworo. This is the area where just about some weeks back, the youths and residents of this area, they went on a spree of protests here on the Government Bridge. They were here some weeks back, and the protest was due to the fact that they were attempting, or rather, demolition of houses in this area started already. After some time, we're told that demolitions have stopped, but just 2 nights ago, the demolitions continued. And this is the results that we have seen here today. Houses have gone, churches, mosques, businesses, people are out on the streets here in Oworonshoki. Now this is a situation, but this morning what we have seen so far is heavy presence of security operatives led by the Commissioner of Police, CP Moshood Jimo. This morning here at Oworonshoki, we understand that there are feelers that the residents of this area just might be coming out again to protest, and let out their grievances on the fact that their houses have been demolished, their businesses and livelihoods gone, but that has so far not happened. What we have here so far this morning, since about 7 a.m., is a heavy presence of police operatives here at Iyanaworo. And as you can see, a while back, the CP.
Fortunately, we cannot, due to some sound connectivity issues there, I want to believe. Well, we apologize for the audio challenges there. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we'll see if we can bring in at least maybe Israel and also our in-house analyst to look at one of the final story, this time from the Guardian newspaper. Stay with us. Welcome back. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up the show at this juncture. I want to say thank you for joining us. And thanks to our in-house analyst, Mr. Theophilus Akatuba. We hope to have you again so we can have more time to discuss.
Are you sure we can't take one more paper?
No,
in the spirit
no.
of just too funny, the fastest reader in the world, you could attempt the Guardian newspaper. But unfortunately, we have to go now.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Thank you so much. My name is
Thank you for joining us.